Right. So let's go back to So we made mention of that, and then another thing that also took place is another thing that he was speaking about, right? So we kind of spoke about that, and we'll probably touch on Jeremiah again. We'll probably go back there again, but then he was talking about Deuteronomy 28, and let's get the 52nd to the 57th verse. I just want to hit some of the points.
Hey, well, you know what? Since you got it on the screen, you want to?
Yeah. So I'll just let me just scroll down here and pull up 52 to the 57th verse, and it says, "And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trusted throughout all thy land, and he shall besiege thee in thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy power giveth thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and thy daughters, which the Lord thy power hath given thee in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thy enemies shall distress thee." Now that right there, that's talking about 70 AD. Even though we read about how King Nebuchadnezzar, they sieged the city of Jerusalem, and they waited for all the food to run out, and then it tells you the mighty men tried to leave the city at night and leave, and they caught him, and they caught Zedekiah. He was on the run. They killed his sons, plucked his eyes out, put fetters, put chains of brass around him, and brought him drug him into Babylon, into captivity. This right here, this is Deuteronomy the 28th chapter. Deuteronomy the 28th chapter was written after we came through the Gulf of Akbar. We were in the wilderness of Zin. At the foot of Mount Sinai, Moses went up to Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights, and he got not just the 10 commandments, he got the law, which is Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. He got the first 5 books. So this was received after we came out of Egypt. So this right here is this ain't talking about the Babylonian siege. This is talking about 70 AD with the Romans. Now I read the part where it says, "And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and thy daughters, which the Lord thy power hath given thee in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee." It says, so now, when did that happen? Now, there's an account here in the Josephus, and I'm going to read this account in the Josephus. And this is in War of the Jews, book 6, which is down here, War of the Jews, book 6. It's going to be some reading. Let me see, chapter 3, I believe. It's going to be some reading. These letters are kind of small, but I'm gonna go and read it, because this is going to give clearance to Deuteronomy 28 and 52 to 57. Yeah, I got. Hold up. Let me open the door real quick. And Leonidas. Shalom. Hey, Leonidas just joined us. Shalom. Hey, you can, yeah.
I'll show you a trick to make the letters bigger. On your keyboard, hold down the control key, and then hit the plus sign while you're holding down control.
Control plus, and they'll get bigger.
Yeah, every time you hit. Yep.
Okay. Control plus.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know who I ain't get paid the big bucks.
Oh yeah, that's what.
Yeah, you can hit it as many times you want until it gets as big as you want it to be. That's good right there. We can read it now. Yep, there you go.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, so the water. You know, I didn't know about that, but now I do. That's why, Yep. So I'm going to chapter 3. Yeah, the water, because that helps. Because man, them letters was mad small, man. So let me get here. Chapter 3, paragraph 3. War of the Jews, book 6, chapter 3, paragraph 3. Now those that perish by famine in the city, This is dealing with the Roman siege of 70 AD. Now, those that perished by famine in the city, the number was prodigious, and the miseries they underwent were unspeakable. For if so much as the shadow of any kind of food did any were appear, a war was commenced presently, and the dearest friends fell a fighting one with another about it. People, friends were fighting with each other over food. Now, the backstory to this, the reason why this happened is because, okay, the Romans besieged the city, but what happened is the Zealots and the Sicarii, right? That's going to be more reading. You know, it's going to be too much reading. We'll be here till 5 in the morning. The Zealots and the Sicarii, what they were doing is, okay, here it is. We're fighting against the Romans. Are you going to join the rebellion and fight with us? No. So then what these assholes did, these jagoffs did, they burned down the food supply in the city. You know, certain people had their own little gardens or whatever, growing things, this and that, whatever animals that they had, their own sheep, oxen that they had inside the walls of the city, chickens, whatever, they burned everything down. So now you had to join the rebellion because you had no choice to join and to fight. But then after a while, when they got into fighting with the Romans, there was no food to eat. They became malnourished. So there was no food in the city because these jackoffs, they burned everything down. They burned the food reserves. That's the madness of the Zealots and the Sicarii when you go into the history and read about it. So I'm giving you the backdrop of why there was no food in the city. It says, snatching from each other the most miserable supports of life, nor would men believe that those who were dying had no food. But the robbers, those robbers, that was the Zealots and the Sicarii, would search them when they were expiring. So a person is dead, they'd be searching a dead person, make sure they wasn't hiding no food on them. Right? It says, lest anyone should have concealed food in their bosoms and counterfeited dying. In other words, you fake like you was dying so you could keep your food on you so they wouldn't take your food. This is what was going on. At the same time, we were sieged by the Romans. At the same time, this was going on inside the city. It says, but the robbers would search them when they were expiring, lest anyone should have concealed food in their bosoms and counterfeited dying. Nay, these robbers gaped for want and ran about stumbling and staggering along like mad dogs and reeling against the doors of the houses like drunken men. They would also, in the great distress they were in, rush into the very same houses 2 or 3 times and one in the same day. Moreover, their hunger was so intolerable that it obliged them to chew everything while they gathered such things as the most sordid animals would not touch. So things that certain animals would not touch, they were eating that. It says that it obliged them to chew everything 3 times in one and the same day. Moreover, their hunger was so intolerable that it obliged them to chew everything while they gathered such things as the most sordid animals would not touch and endured to eat them. Nor did they at length abstain from girdles and shoes and the very leather which belonged to their shields. They pulled off and gnawed. The very wisp of old hay became food to some, and some gathered up fibers and sold a very small weight of them for 4 Attic drachma. But why do I describe the shameless impudence that the famine brought on men in their eating inanimate things, while I am going to relate to a matter of fact, the like to which no history relates, either among the Greeks or barbarians? 'Tis horrible to speak of it, and incredible when heard. I had indeed willingly omitted this calamity of ours, that I might not seem to deliver what is so portentous to posterity, but that I have innumerable witnesses to it in my own age. And besides, my country would have had little reason to thank me for suppressing the miseries that she underwent at this time. Now he goes on to say, there was a certain woman that dwelt beyond Jordan. Her name was Mary. Her father was Eleazar of the village Beth Zab, which signifies the house of Hyssop. She was eminent for her family and her wealth, and had fled away to Jerusalem with the rest of the multitude. and was with them besieged therein at this time. The other effects of this woman had been already seized upon, and her other food and things, they already seized upon it and took it from her, right? So this was a well-to-do woman. This wasn't like just a regular everyday woman. Such, I mean, as she had brought with her out of Perea and removed to the city what she had treasured up besides, as also what food she had contrived to save, had been also carried off by the rapacious guards, who came every day running into her house for that purpose. This put the poor woman into a very great passion, and by the frequent reproaches and imprecations she cast at these rapacious villains, she had provoked them to anger against her, but none of them, either of the indignation she had raised against herself or out of the commiseration of her case, would take away her life. So they wouldn't take away her life. They would just kept coming to try to take food, see if she had anything. Then let me skip down because it's gonna be a lot of reading.
Yeah.
Okay. Go back to Deuteronomy 28 and let's read that again. 28 and where I had left off at
You were reading it. I don't know if you still got a tab.
Yeah, I got it right here. It says, and thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and thy daughters, which the Lord thy power hath given thee in the siege and the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward her husband of her bosom, and toward her son and her daughter, and toward her young that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege, and straitness wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. That was going on here during the siege here at Jerusalem. So now I'm gonna go back up in here and touch on the story of this woman. Now it says here, it says, and if she found any food, she perceived her labors were for others and not for herself. So if she had any food that she found, those men were going to come back into her house and take it, because they kept coming in droves. They just kept coming in. Nah, you hiding food. You got food here somewhere. They kept coming in. Now it goes on to say, and it was now become impossible for her any way to find any more food, while the famine pierced through her very bowels and marrow, when also her passion was fired to a degree beyond the famine itself, nor did she consult with anything but with her passion and the necessity she was in. She then attempted a most unnatural thing, and snatching up her son, which was a child suckling at her bed, she said, O thou miserable infant, for whom shall I perceive thee in this war, this famine, and this sedition? As to the war with the Romans, if they preserve our lives, we must be slaves. This famine also will destroy us, even before that slavery comes upon us. Yet are these seditious rogues more terrible than both the other. You see, the seditious rogues were the Zealots and the Sicarii. She said they were more terrible than the Romans. Come on, be thou my food, and be thou a fury to these seditious varlets, and a byword to the world, which is all that is now wanting to complete the calamities of us Jews. As soon as she had said this, she slew her son, and then roasted him, and eat the one half of him, and kept the other half by her concealed. Upon this, the seditious came in presently, and smelling the horrid scent of this food, they threatened her that they would cut her throat immediately. So she roasted her son, ate half of him, these zealots and Sakari came back into her house. Look, we smell something. You got some food in there. You better give it to us or we're going to cut your throat. Right? So then it says, or we will cut your throat immediately. If she did not show them what food she had gotten ready, she replied that she had saved her very fine portion of it for them, and withal uncovered what was left of her son. Hereupon they were seized with an horror and amazement of mind, and stood astonished at the sight, when she said to them, This is mine own son, and what hath been done was mine own doing. Come eat of this food, for I have eaten of it myself. Do not you pretend to be either more tender than a woman? She says, so come and eat. Well, you're going to act like you're more tender than a woman now? Then it goes on to say, or more compassionate than a mother? Are you more compassionate than a mother? But if you be so scrupulous and do abominate this my sacrifice, as I have eaten the one half, let the rest be reserved for me also. After which those men went out trembling, being never so much affrighted at anything as they were at this. And with some difficulty, they left the rest of that meat to the mother. So that's what happened here in Deuteronomy 28, 52 to 57. That was a common thing that was going on there in 70 AD in Jerusalem. That was talking about 70 AD, that distress. The city was, they sieged the city on the outside. The Zealots and the Sakari, when you read further here in the Josephus, they destroyed the food reserves that were in the city. Then there was a point in the battle when there was no food for nobody to eat. So then they kept running up in people's houses. You got food in here somewhere. There's food here somewhere. There was nothing to eat. So that curse fell upon us right there during 70 AD, during the first Roman Jewish War.
It's coming down.
And guess what? It's coming back here in America in this day and time. Because, the food supply is being cut off. The different food processing plants, chicken, beef, bison, whatever the hell it may be, that nasty ass pork shit which we ain't supposed to eat, but people out there eat that shit. All the food processing centers here in America have been being burnt down over the last 2 years, and mainly last year into this year. I mean, every week 1, 2 are going up in smoke. You got the supply chain issues with the you got the prices with the diesel going up through the roof. Supply chain issues. This right here that we just read about in Deuteronomy 28, 52 to 57, and we read an account in the Josephus. This is coming right here, right now, in this day and time. The stage is set right now for this to happen again here, right now. Where Keisha, you're gonna eat little Shah Meek and little Shah Quisha, because there ain't gonna be no food. You ain't gonna be able to go to the store and go get you some groceries, because the supply chain is being destroyed. So even though this happened in 70 AD, it's going to happen again in this day and time. But here in America, it's going to happen again. This time is going to come back again. But again, people are reading and say, you can't say that. That was talking about 70 AD. They ain't talking about now. Well, guess what? You're going to feel it now in this day and time.
I precept for you.
Go ahead, Elder. Now.
This is Revelations 18 and 8. It said, therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine.
Death and mourning and famine. So the stage is being set right now for that. Even on the regular local news media, they're talking about the food shortage. And they're talking about the supply chain, and they're talking about the food shortage. Oh, there's not enough truck drivers to go and get the stuff and bring it. Bullshit. The diesel is so high, a lot of truckers who are owner operators, they can't take the swing. It's too much money. Because when you have a tractor trailer, if you're an owner operator, you getting all the money. But if you're pouring all the money into the gas tank, it's not worth it to go take the job, because the majority of it is going in the gas tank instead of in your pocket. So it's like you hustling backwards. We got a saying in the hood called hustling backwards. So it's now you hustling backwards. You're not hustling forward. You're supposed to go forward, not backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of trucks are being taken off the road because they can't afford it. They can't afford the swing. It's too much of a swing. Go ahead, brother.
Yep. It says, therefore, this Revelation 18:8. It said, therefore shall her plagues come in one day. And that plague that's coming to Babylon the Great, aka America. Come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord power who judges.
For strong is the Lord power who judgeth her. Now, the situation that's over there in the Ukraine, those Ukrainian soldiers, the reason why they sent $40 billion over there and they keep sending money and aid is because they're getting mollywopped over there by the Russian army. The Ukraine army has been trained by the UN. They've been training something like 10,000 troops a year for a certain amount of years. Trained and the UN tactics, style of fighting, even how to communicate and send communiques and all that stuff back and forth so that the enemy can't intercept it and all that. They're even better trained than the American army. And those Ukrainian soldiers that were trained by the UN, they got massacred by the Russian army. And that's why money and supplies just keep being sent to Ukraine because they're not winning. They're getting their ass mopped up. And eventually the U.S. is going to have to go in there and send ground troops up in there. And what's going to happen? The Russian army is going to tear them a new asshole. And we're in this day and time. But now, if you got something to say, Elder Ayathan, please.
That scripture that I had Lamentations because that kind of it goes into.
You can read it. No, you can still read it because it's still edification.
Okay, so this is Lamentations 4:9, and it says, "They that be slain with the sword are better than they that be slain with hunger."
They that be slain with the sword are better than they that are slain with hunger, right? Because at least that's a quick death. You hit with the sword and you out of there. You feel that pain or whatever for that instant, and then basically the blood is all out your body, heart stop beating, you stop breathing, you're done. But with the famine, where your body keeps eating and there's nothing to eat, so your body starts to cannibalize itself.
Yep.
Your body is eating you from the inside out. And it starts with the muscle. It starts with the muscle first. It eats the muscle first, then it starts to eat the fat. Your body will start feeding on the muscle first. After the muscle's all gone, then it'll go to the fat. Then it'll start going to anything else.
Yeah.
So they that be slain with the sword are better than they that are slain with famine.
Yep. It says, "For these pine away, stricken through for the want of the fruits of the field."
Right.
And look at those old commercials of Feed a Hungry Child.
Right.
With Sally, who's the name? Sally Weathers or whatever.
Right. USA for Africa.
Yep.
You seen they showed them Ethiopians over there. Here it is. They're skinny as hell, head looking big as hell, but their stomach is swollen. The stomach is not swollen because of food. It's swollen because it ain't no food.
Gas.
It's just full. It's just full of a ball of gas. But their legs and their body is skinny as hell, but they got a big ass goddamn stomach like a bear belly, but it ain't nothing in there.
It's an air belly.
Yeah, it's an air belly.
Verse 12. Oh, it's like verse 10. Here's a point. It says, "The hands of the pitiful woman have saddened their own children."
Now, didn't we read that in the Josephus? It said the hands of the pitiful woman. It gave a story of a woman, but that was a common thing. The hands of the pitiful women have saddened their children.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Have saddened their own children. They were their meat in the destruction of the daughter of my people.
Didn't we read that? They were the meat in the destruction of the daughter of my people. That specifically is talking about 70 AD. But this was written during the time of Moses at Mount Sinai. That right there, those is talking strictly about 70 AD. It ain't talking about during the time of Zedekiah and Nebuchadnezzar II. That's talking about 70 AD.
Yeah, future prophecy.
It was a future prophecy. Even going into Babylon, that was a future prophecy. So that was it on that.